Okay. Okay, so welcome to this live session. We're going to be looking at how do we avoid overwhelm. And I don't know about you, but I have this problem. I have overwhelm. And what I'd love to know actually, before we dive into what I'm going to teach you today, and I'm going to teach you 9 strategies, by the way. We're going to go through 9 things. And then, because it's a live session, I'm going to answer your questions. But what I'd love to know first is, how big a problem is overwhelm to you? Just put in the comments. Is it something you're on top of? Do you feel stressed? Is it all the time? Is it occasionally? How does overwhelm impact on you? How do you feel about overwhelm? Just let me know in the comments, just so I get a sense of some of the challenges and some of the issues we are facing. So Amy says huge for her. And I think that's probably not alone, Amy. We have Charles says it's a massive problem all the time, as it is for most people. So don't worry, as you're about to find out. Okay, Roy is stressed all the time. Okay, let's hope to solve that a bit. Philip Sinclair says constantly feel overwhelmed. KL, not sure what KL stands for off the top of my head, but it comes and goes. And of course, no surprise here, not that one, this one. During tax season, the most. Marjorie says, hi there, Marjorie, hope you're well, says very much. Loads of comments. Okay, Randall says tax season's the worst. Robin, hi there, Robin from Moscow, work is either a feast or a famine. And many more comments. You can see the comments that are coming through. Well, I feel it too, okay? I get overwhelmed at times. And here's the thing about overwhelm, and it isn't a big issue because overwhelm, really, it's something that it can cause stress. It's a big cause of stress, which could have impacts on all sorts of things if we get too overwhelmed in terms of our health, relationships, quality of life. So it is an important issue. However, here's my big thoughts on overwhelm. You see, if you're a business owner, and I know you are, if you're a business owner, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're creative, then unfortunately, overwhelm never really goes away. It's just a natural thing because it's something that, and I'm someone, I do a lot of thinking. I count myself as a creative person. I'm always coming up with new ideas. And so one of the things I was going to ask you is, would it be useful if I taught you some tips, some techniques, strategies, tactics, some hacks for getting more stuff done faster? And I'm going to guess the answer might be yes to that. And because, yes, we all want to get more stuff done and be more effective with our time. And if you want to know some hacks, some strategies and stuff for getting more done in less time, then I will share some thoughts with that, and we will do some Q&A later. And Roy says yes, and David says techniques would be great. But let me just share some bad news. So, you see, I can teach you all the hacks that I know. And I kind of pride myself that I think one of my biggest strengths is the ability to get stuff done. And if you've been following me for a while, you'll know, for example, that 2 of my most recent books, my last 2 books that I wrote in a day, a single day, and they're on Amazon. I did them in a day. You may also know that I have a blog post and a YouTube video pretty much every single week. And you may remember a couple of years back, I did 52 videos for the whole year in one day. I filmed them all in a day. I have studied for years how to get stuff done fast, how to be really productive, how to get huge amounts done. And that's really important because what I've learned is that when you get more stuff done, then you keep ahead of everybody else, you can make more money. And I've built a business that I'm very proud of, where as you know, I teach every single week, every single month, over 500 people that are part of my academy. It's allowed me to move out to Portugal. And so getting stuff done is certainly really important, being able to get stuff done. But here's the bad news. The bad news is if I just teach you the hacks, the shortcuts, the techniques, the strategies, and so on to get more stuff done, that ain't going to solve your problem. And here's the reason why. Because if you're a business owner, if you're a creative person, if you're an entrepreneur, you're always going to come up with more ideas. I do all the time. However much stuff I get done, I am still coming up with more ideas. In fact, let me just give you a practical example of my latest overwhelm. That if you follow me regularly, you'll know that Sarah and I moved out to Portugal. When was it now? It was probably almost 9 months ago now. And we rented for 6 months, and now we've moved into a house. And you'll notice if you look around that my studio's changed. A number of things have changed, and I've been getting studio built. I've got different audio, different lighting, a different camera. And sometime I will show you my studio, but I have so much stuff here. I've taken my teachings, my training to another level of professionalism. And whilst I am very proud of that and pleased with that, there's so much more that I want to do. I have got a list as long as my arm of things that I still want to do. And I was saying to Sarah the other day, I feel so overwhelmed because I've got these things I want to buy, all this stuff. And it's just a natural thing. So overwhelm, unfortunately, is a kind of a fact of life, but we can take away the stress when we start to think about the bigger picture. So whilst I want to give you some techniques and strategies because you want that, I know you do, they're not going to solve your problem. It's the bigger picture. And if you're in the Value Pricing Academy, you'll know that I teach something called from vision to plan. You see, what we need to do is a feeling of overwhelm. Overwhelm comes from, we feel overwhelmed when, I think, two key things. Number one, we lack clarity. We're jumping around from one thing to another, and we lack clarity on what we need to be doing. What should we focus on? It's a lack of clarity. It's also a feeling of being out of control, that we're just reacting to things. And so what we need to do to deal with overwhelm and get on top of it is we need to create clarity, crystal clear clarity as to what we should be doing, and take control of our lives. Clarity and control are the two things. So how do we do that? Well, I teach this idea of vision to plan. What we need to do is start to plan our lives. And the process that I teach is that from a business perspective, you want to be thinking about, what do you want your business, your accounting firm to look like when it's done? And if you're in the Value Pricing Academy and you've not yet done this exercise, do it. What do you want it to look like when it's done? That could be 10 years from now. It could be when you're thinking of retiring, selling your practice, whatever it is. What do you want it to look like? And write that down. Record it. How big do you want it to be? Do you want it to be, where do you want it to be? What sort of office? How many people do you want to have working for you? What do you want to do? What do you want to be known for? You need to have this picture, this vision. And then what you do from that is you work backwards. You work backwards from that picture. And so the next thing that you would do is think about the medium-term goals. So if, for example, you've got a vision that's 10 years out, mine's always 10 years out. I don't plan to retire. I have no intention of retiring because I love what I do. But 10 years out is my vision. And so my medium-term goals I set at 3 years. It could be 3, 4, 5 years. It's your choice. But I have a medium-term goal. That's written down, it's shared with my team, and that goal is a picture of where I want to be, that if I get to that point, I know that I'm on track to get into where I want to be. I just work backwards. So if I want to be here in 10 years, this is what the business needs to look like in 5 years. And then having done that, I create the short-term goal. And I always suggest that a short-term goal is 12 months out. It doesn't have to be 12 months, but for me, I do this exercise in calendar years. Every single December, I do it, and I've done this for 15 years now. I do this exercise religiously every December, and I work backwards, and I then plan, where do I want to be in 12 months from now? Because when we think about all the things we want to achieve in our careers, in our businesses, it's overwhelming. And so we need to have that clarity, that clear picture, but we have to bring it back to what's important this year. Yes, I want to do all these amazing things, but actually what's important this year? But even that can be too much. So what we then do is, having got to 12 months out, we break the year, the short-term goal, into milestones. And one of the things I've learned is that 3 months is an ideal milestone. Because in 3 months, that's long enough to get big projects done. I call them the big rocks. So if, for example, if you were perhaps inspired by some of the things you may have heard recently on some of my live sessions, like, for example, Aaron McLeish, who's written an incredible book. If you're thinking, I want to write a book, then 3 months if you've got the right focus, you can do that in 3 months. If you want to completely build your website from the ground up, you can do that in 3 months. If you want to launch a brand new service offering, you could do that in 3 months. If you want to figure out how to build a YouTube channel and do videos, you could do that in 3 months. 3 months is a long enough time period to do a big project, to do a big rock. And so when you're thinking about your strategy, you know where you want to be a year from now, you start thinking about, what do I need to do? What are the big things I have to do between now and the end of the year? Once you've done that, you just allocate them to the quarters and focus on a maximum of 3 things, and ideally less, but no more than 3 big projects every quarter. And you get those mapped out. And then you work through one thing at a time. You create that clarity as to where you want to be a year from now, that clarity, and then you build out your quarterly projects. And then from that, you drill it down to your weekly to-do list. Let me make this really practical for you and just show you kind of how I do this. I just need to just quickly, I did have this opened earlier. Let me just switch across. I use Trello for doing this. There are all sorts of ways that you could do it. I happen to use Trello. So one of the things that we do is this vision to plan process. We have a Trello board where we plan everything that we do. We have an ideas log. So every time I come up with a new idea, because you come up with creative new ideas. If I come up with a new idea that doesn't fit in with this year's plan, it goes into my ideas log. I just create a brand new card for every idea. Then I don't worry about it and get stressed over it because I know it's there to look at when the time is right. Because right now, what I need to focus on is the big projects, the big rocks. Now, once we've then done that, what I then do is I'm a big fan of planning out every single week. So again, I use a Trello board and I have on there, we transfer all the things we've agreed to do in the business and we transfer them across into our future task list. So I have a list of all the things that I want to do. For example, a little while ago, I decided I want to teach people how to be more effective in this online world we live in. So I'm running an event very soon. I don't need to worry about it because it's a future task, okay? That's not for this particular week. And then as I work through the week, I just work through my to-do list, through the things that I am working on. So for example, just to make it practical, this particular session was a post by Nina in the Facebook group, said, how do I avoid overwhelm? I thought, that's a great idea. I'll do a session sometime. So I created a card on that. And then I forgot about it. I just moved it into the future task because it wasn't right at that point in time. But what I did is I recorded some initial thoughts on what I might cover and Nina's question. I put it that was on the 23rd of March. I then put this to a future date to work on. Then we worked on it and planned it. And this was about a week ago. We planned it and we told people about this particular event. And then I moved it to it's Wednesday today. It's on my Wednesday column. Monday, Tuesday this week, I didn't worry about this event. I wasn't thinking about this event because I knew I had a card. I knew I had it mapped out for Wednesday. And I had all the information I needed on there. And I knew that when Wednesday came around today, I knew that I just need to put aside an hour or so just to reflect on my thoughts, set up the session and teach. Okay, so that's really the big picture. It's about avoiding overwhelm, is about having that clarity as to what you're trying to achieve. And so you can then create control of your life. You want to start controlling your big projects, what you're going to work on, and controlling your weeks. You want to be in control of your week so that everything you do every week is working towards your quarterly projects, your quarterly big rocks. Knowing that once you've done those, you're on target to hit your short-term goal. Knowing that when you hit your short-term goals, you're on target to hit the medium-term goals, which means you're then on track to hit where you want to be in your business. And of course, that's the same with your life as well. It's not just about overwhelm with business, it's overwhelm with life. We have to have that control. I said I've been doing this process from vision to plan. I developed it about 15 years ago. I do it religiously every December. I do it not just for my business, but also my life. And you probably know that just a decade ago, I decided that it was too cold in the UK. I didn't like the winters. I'm a cyclist and I hate cycling in the winter when there's snow, there's ice, there's rain, there's wind. It's awful. I like the sunshine. And so we're in Portugal now. We've been here for 9 months, where in Portugal they have 300 days of sunshine a year. It's sunny today. It's awesome outside. So we love Portugal. But that was a 10-year plan, because moving to a foreign country with a foreign language is quite scary and daunting. And there were things that I couldn't do straight away. My children were still at school. I couldn't leave the country while they were at school. I was in a business 10 years ago that ran physical events. There was no way that I could move to a different country with a business where I had to be running events physically. So I created a plan. And I took things one step at a time. There were things that seriously worried me. Would I be okay being out of the UK for extended periods of time? What about the language, becoming resident, and tax issues and so on? I just created a plan, and we just worked the plan. We just did things one step at a time, as they needed doing. So let me now share with you. Some specific things, 9 strategies. So if you've got a pen and paper, get ready to write these down. 9 things that you should be doing to help you avoid overwhelm. So I've given you the bigger picture. The bigger picture is about planning your life, getting control over your life, creating clarity. So the next thing is, if you ever feel overwhelmed, and some of you said earlier, all the time I'm overwhelmed, I'm so stressed. If you're feeling overwhelmed, stop and reflect. Just take some time out. I said to you earlier, if you're a business owner, an entrepreneur, we're always thinking. You may know, if you followed me for years, that I love to cycle. I go on my bike every day pretty much. And one of the things I've learned over the years is that I do my creative thinking on the bike. Because when I'm out on the bike, I kind of switch off, and I switch off, and then what I find is that thoughts come to me, and I talk a lot to myself in my head. I plan things, I script things, I plan things, I come up with ideas. I come back off a bike ride, and I've got another idea. And it can become overwhelming. So as you're being creative, as you're coming up with ideas for what you want to do with your life, with your firm, with your business, when you feel overwhelmed, stop and reflect. Just stop and think about what's really important. Go back to the planning that you've done about what's important this year. Where do you want to be this year? We can't do everything. We cannot do everything. We can do one thing at a time. So stop and reflect. Number 2, the second thing you want to do is we get overwhelmed sometimes because we have all these ideas and we're thinking, oh, I've got to do that. I must do that. I promised to get back to that person. I know I want to work on that particular thing. And we have all these things we've got to do. So number 2, get them out of your head, okay? I have this problem. I sometimes think, I was, again, talking to Sarah the other day, I want to do some more things in my studio here. There's more things I want to buy. I want to buy a second camera. I want to buy a different microphone. I love having, this is a great microphone, but as I walk away at the end of it, I forget to take it back off and I end up pulling out the socket and things. There's so many things I want to get. And the other day, having watched some reviews of different products and things from my film studio, I'm getting stressed. And I realize, get it out of my head. Sit down, make a list. When you make a list of the things that you need to do, I always find that just gives me a sense of, that's better. I don't have to worry about it now. It's written down somewhere. So get those things that are going around your head out onto a list, onto a piece of paper somewhere. Okay, next idea, number 3, is you can't do everything now, and not everything has to be done now. So every time you've got a list of things that want doing, ask yourself the question, what can be done later? What can be done later? And if you've done this idea of from vision to plan, you've taken your vision, you've worked backwards, and you've got your quarterly projects, they're the things that you've decided need to be done this quarter to help you get to where you want to be in life. They're the things. Anything else that comes up isn't fitting with that plan. So unless it's, obviously some things are important, for example, customers. As a customer wants to call you, wants to meet with you, we have to deal with customers and clients. Sometimes that's urgent. But very often, a lot of the things that we come up with, they don't have to be done now. I'm always coming up with new things to teach. So, for example, one of the projects that's been fun lately is I've got, it wasn't on my plan at the start of the year as part of one of my projects, but I decided based on listening to people in my Facebook group and in the academy, is that I want to create the ultimate system for how do you value price a brand new client. And I've now created that system. And I was thinking about, okay, when am I going to teach it though? When am I going to teach it? And then I realized, however much I want to teach it and people need that, there's no deadline. And so what I've done is I've planned it for later. Good news is not too far down the line, watch this space. But I've got a date, it's in the future. I don't have to worry about it now. I'm not feeling flustered and overwhelmed by it. I've planned it for a future date. So when you've got your list of all these things, be really honest. What needs to be done now? Most things don't. Most things aren't that urgent. Just put a future date. Idea number four. Everyone talks about a to-do list, creating a to-do list. I think even more important is a not to-do list. A not to-do list. We take on so many things and they're not always that important. One of the ways I get around that is I come up with ideas all the time. Different things I can teach my community, things I can teach, new ideas. And when I come up with a new idea, if it doesn't fit in with my current plan, my quarterly targets, I showed you earlier, I have an ideas log. And so if I come up with an idea of something I'd like to do in my business, a new marketing idea, something I want to teach, I put it on a Trello card and I put it on the ideas log, knowing that at the end of the year, when I do my strategic planning and we spend 1 or 2 days out of our business just going through our strategic planning process, I know that we'll look at that ideas log and say, do you know what, that idea, that'll fit in with what we want to do this next 12 months. The time will come when it's right. Or perhaps you may decide that it was a great idea at the time, but it's perhaps not that important. So create a not to-do list of things that you're not going to do, and if the things that you want to do in the future, put them on an ideas list, put them for the future, and then you can reassess at a later time. Okay, next idea, number 5, I think this is. One of the things that we are, and I'm particularly guilty at, is it's too easy to say yes to people, to take on all sorts of new projects. And we have to be better at saying no. When you've got clarity over what needs to be done, because that's part of your plan, then if someone asks you to do something which isn't part of your plan, it's okay to say no. Let me give you another personal example. So in my previous business, which was a network of UK accountants, we worked with several hundred UK accountants. Because of my position, I was approached every single week by somebody who essentially wanted to sell something to UK accountants. So they might contact me and say, Mark, we have a way that can help accountants get finance for their clients. Can we talk? Every week someone would come to me and I'd say, yes, let's have a chat. Let's talk. That'll be cool. That sounds like a good idea. And what I realized after several years of saying yes to people was that and joint ventures, by the way, can be, from a marketing point of view, joint ventures can be really, really powerful. But what I found was that when people approached me and said, look, could we work together? I want to talk to you. Let's explore something that we can help each other and serve accountants better. What I found over the years was that you spend a lot of time in conversations with those people. Then if they progress, you've got to figure out the commercial arrangement. You might create some heads of terms. It might turn to some legal agreement. You've then got to figure out, well, how are you going to promote this thing of theirs to the audience? It was really time consuming. And what I also found is that at least 9 out of 10 people that approached me and said, we could do this together, it didn't really work out. It was a waste of time. Okay. Joint ventures, by the way, are powerful, but much better when you approach people. You may find that people are always approaching you. And if that's not part of your plan, if it doesn't fit, you need to say no. So a few years ago, I say no to almost everybody that approaches me. Okay, I have a script. It's actually on my screen here. Let me just read it. I'll just read it to you just so you know. I say no in a polite way. It's a standard email that I send out when anyone says to me, Mark, can we work together? I've got something that will really help your audience. So I say, I have a to-do list as long as my arm. For that reason, I try to put new opportunities on my not to-do list. I have enough to focus on. I've worked with accountants since 2000. I have over 4,000 accountants and bookkeepers in my Facebook group, growing. It's actually 8,000 now, as you know. I give them all the numbers because I want them to get excited about the possibility of working with me, but I then say, I simply don't have the time to follow up with every request I get. So rather than randomly responding to some and ignoring others, I choose to decline all requests for a call. Please don't take it personally. This email is my standard response. And that's what I send. So everybody gets a no in a nice way. I explain why. I get people approach me all the time, and rather than picking some and not others, I just say no. And that saves a lot of time, because I used to feel so overwhelmed when I had 5 or 6 projects on the go from different people who'd approach me that wanted to work together. And I found it was just a waste of time. It didn't fit in with my plans. When people approach you and say, can we do something together? And you say yes, that what you're doing is you're fitting with their plans, their goals. You're letting them control what your to-do list. You want to take control based on what's important to you this year. Where do you want to get to? Okay, where were we? That was number 5. Just say no to people, okay? In a nice way, without burning bridges. Say no. Next, when you have something to do, ask the question, can I delegate it? Sometimes one of the things I learned is that we're not always very good at delegating stuff because we feel like we can do it better than anybody else, so we do it. But if you try to do everything, you end up feeling even more overwhelmed. So think about how you can better delegate what you do. I'm a big fan of letting other people doing the work and only doing what's absolutely necessary. Okay, so again, just to give you an idea, and if you're in the academy, I'm going to be teaching, if you're in my Value Price Academy or Bookkeepers Price Academy, I'm going to be teaching a system on the next Marketing Monday where I'll teach you exactly how I get a blog post done every single week. But we have a system, a structure, and we have a Trello board that does that, where we work through it. And there's only one thing I do with the whole process, and that's I record the content. Once I record the content, everything else, from designing the thumbnail to uploading it to wherever, to writing the blog post, to promoting on social media, I do none of that. It's all delegated. So you want to ask yourself the question, this is the question to ask, with everything on your list that you need to do, which things on that list is it absolutely essential, 100% essential, that only you can do those things? If only you can do those things, then yes, you have to do them. But if other people could do them, then delegate. The next idea is I think that was 6. Number 7 is a variation. If you don't have a team of people, if you don't employ people, if you're on your own, then you can outsource. There are so many options for outsourcing now. So our business is, there's 3 of us. There's me, there's Sarah, there's Emily, and that's it. But we outsource other things. We have a team of people that do other things for us. Outsourcing is so important. And again, I ask myself the question, what things could somebody else do better than me? I don't have to do everything. And the third part of that, so we can delegate, we can outsource. The third thing is systemize. We have to create systems. And this really fits in with the first one with delegation, because one of the mistakes and one of the reasons why we don't delegate stuff is we're worried that if we pass it on to somebody else in our team to do it, they'll mess up and we then have to fix things. And if that happens, it's because we haven't got the right systems in place and we haven't spent the time training, teaching our people, our team, to follow those systems. So if you want to delegate without having to then correct work, you need to have systems. Systems are so important. So going back to an example I've just said, I do things like I did 52 blog posts and 52 YouTube videos, and the whole thing took me a day. How did I do that? Because we have a system for the entire process. A system for the entire process, and I only do one thing. The rest is then delegated, it's passed on to, most of it is actually Emily. She does an extraordinary job of pulling together all my blog posts and other content. She's our content marketer. How did she become so good at doing that? Because we had a system, and I taught her how to follow the system. Okay, it's a great system. It's one that I will be teaching very soon to people in the Value Pricing Academy and the Bookkeepers Pricing Academy on our next Marketing Monday. Systems are so powerful because once you have a system, a great system, and a system that then allows you, there's someone to delegate to, that means you can relax and feel, someone else is dealing with this. I go live a lot with things like YouTube Live, as you know. I do a lot of live sessions, a lot of webinars, YouTube Lives, Facebook Lives, and at the end of every session, there's things that need to be done. We need to. Sometimes there's follow up. Sometimes there's creating some stuff to put in as links underneath. There's other things that need to be done. And that can feel overwhelming, particularly given the fact that all my live sessions are late afternoon, 4 till 5, 5:30, because we're in Portugal, and that time works for people in the US and Canada. And so the last thing I want to do is worry about all the post-live sessions I've got to do. We've systemized it. We just have a system for doing it. When I finish this session, that's me done. When I finish this session, what we typically do, Sarah and I'll just let you into a little secret, is because we're in Portugal and it's sunny outside, we'll probably just go and grab a glass of wine, a beer, sit by the pool at 5:30 and just chill back out again. Knowing that everything else that needs doing is all sorted in one way or another. And the final tip, my number 9 tip for you, focus on one thing at a time. We can't do everything. Just accept the fact that we can't do everything. We feel overwhelmed with all of these things. We can only do one thing at a time. And some people say, oh, I can multitask. And I know that I'm terrible at multitasking, I will admit. If you try to multitask, if you try to do multiple projects at the same time, it's going to take you longer. Because if you flick from one thing to another, and then you go back to that one, you've forgotten where you're at with that one, you've then got to pick it back up again and work out and remember. It's a bit like, you'll probably know in our accounting industry, if I think back to the years ago when I was in practice myself, before I started my own accounting firm, I remember when I was working on clients' books and records doing the end of year financial statements, and they drop their information off, and there's always stuff they forgot to give. There's always customers, clients that don't give you all the information. And so you start the work and you're halfway through before you realize you need a few more things. And so you message them and say, I need this, this, and this. In the meantime, you put it back on the shelf and you work on something else. And then something else, and then something else, because the client always takes weeks to come back. And when they come back to you with the bits of information you need, you go and get the file back off the shelf, and you've forgotten where you got to because you've done 3 or 4 more projects in the meantime, 3 or 4 more clients, and so you spend time trying to remember where you got to, and sometimes repeating some stuff to pick up where you left off. And the more this happens, the more we flick from one thing to another, we're just wasting time. It takes longer. It's inefficient. We feel overwhelmed. We can only focus on one thing at once. And so one of the keys, and I showed you my Trello board a little while ago, one of the keys is plan your week. What are the things that are really important? The big projects, what are the things you've got to work towards? Once I know, so we just had our internal meeting and planned our next 3 months. And we know what those big things are, what we have to do. And so they're the things that have the priority on my Trello board, on my weekly planner. And they're the things that I will be focusing on this week. And I'm blocking out significant chunks of time. Because we can't multitask. We can't do lots of things at the same time. We will just feel overwhelmed. Much better to take one thing, focus on it, do it really well, get it completed, and then we can move on to something else. And we don't feel overwhelmed when we've got that clarity because we've planned when things need to get done. Okay, I hope that helps. I hope that's given you some thoughts, those 9 strategies. But of course, first of all, we have to have that clarity. And that vision to plan process is a great way of doing that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and answer some questions now that I've got in the Facebook group, and I can see that, sorry, the Facebook group, the YouTube channel, I can see there are millions of, what I'm going to, and I should have said this earlier, I apologize. If you've got a question for me coming in, could you put a big Q at the front or a couple of big question marks, but just so I can see, because there's probably a lot of comments here as well. So I'm going to look through for Lisa, I think, might be a question. Lisa says, so Mark, what do you do while you're waiting for the customer to supply the missing items? Okay, in that particular case, sometimes it's out of your control, perhaps, if you're waiting for third parties. But the way that I would do it is when a client's going to give you some information, you've got a project to do for somebody else, I would create that clarity as to what information you need and get them to confirm they've given it to you. There'll always be stuff that crops up where people forget, but the more you can clarify it. So, for example, and bear in mind, it's a while ago now, I sold my accounting firm a long time ago, but I started to systemize it, and I created systems. So when I did things like tax returns, I would create as part of my systems tax return checklists. For every client got a checklist listing exactly what information I needed. We had a generic one that was part of the system, and then we would just delete the things that are not applicable for that client. And then we just send them the checklist and say, please check this off to make sure that we get everything. So it's about the systems, the communication with your clients to make sure you get all of the information that you need. Okay, let's see what else we've got. Please do use a big Q or question mark, just so I can see what the questions are, because there's lots of comments here. So Tammy Gilbert's not a question, but this is going to be an interesting one. I keep a notepad, I guess that's a notepad rather than a notepad, Tammy, at the side of my bed, so I can write it down so I can go to sleep. That's a great idea. We just have to get those ideas out of our head, because otherwise they just sit there and just add to all the other things going around. What else have we got? There's a question from Nadeem Raja. Hi there. Hi there, Nadeem. He says, what if a team member does agree with your visions plan? I'm guessing that's doesn't agree, Nadeem. Well, ultimately, your vision is your vision. It's your business, it's your firm, and you need to create the vision. But what I do is I create the vision with my team. I share the vision. We do it together. Fortunately, my team's never argued on that one, and disagreed. But ultimately, if that does happen, it's your business. It's your business. You need to decide where you want it to go. Now, Nadeem, a more difficult question would be, what if you're in a partnership? You've got fellow business owners and you don't agree. Now, that's a more challenging one, because, and I've seen many, many partnerships where this has been the case, where different partners have a different goal, have a different vision. And unfortunately, it's hard this is a hard one to take sometimes, but the reality is, if you've got business partners and they don't have the same vision as you, perhaps it's time to part company. That's the only way. So the vision is yours, Nadeem. You need to decide on the vision. Ultimately, yes, involve your team, but it's your vision, it's your firm. Where I think it is important to involve the team, though, is when you're looking at values. And what are the values of your business? And you need to get the team on board with that. And again, if they're not on board, if they don't agree with your values, they're probably not right for you. Okay, I hope that helps there, Nadeem. Melissa says QQQ. So I guess that is a question. What is it? What is the best software for tracking to-do lists for clients? Trello, Jetpack, Asana. Right. Well, I personally love Trello. I have had lots of different ways of keeping to-do lists. I'm an Apple fan, and they have a to-do list, a kind of native application, but I found that a bit restrictive. I then moved to something else, and I've forgotten what it is now. But the reason I like Trello is because I'm a visual person. I like to see everything. A to-do list, which is just listed A, B, or just listing things, for me, doesn't really help, because I want to see how different things fit together. So that's why Trello works for me. It's visual. I can see all my cards, and then the little mini projects as a card, and then you can create checklists within a card. So I have to-do lists within a card itself. We have standard to-do lists, and again, if you're in my academy, when I teach you how we do blog posts and so on, what we do is we have cards that we have in our systems, standard to-do lists or checklists for each phase of the project. So I'm a big fan of Trello. I've not used Asana, so I can't comment on that one. But what I would recommend is post that question in my Facebook group, in the big group, Value Price with Mark Wickersham. Post that question and see what other people use. you need to use something that's right for you. Everyone will like different things. I just love Trello. Right, I think the next one I've seen, Randall asked a question. Hi, Randall says, are you using software to stream to YouTube and Facebook at the same time? I don't know. I'm not sure if we are streaming to Facebook at the moment. This particular one might be just YouTube, but the answer to that, Randall, is yes. And one of the things I might as well tell you now, I was going to tell you at the very, very end, and some of you know this already, I've been hinting, but one of the big things I planned at the start of this year, when we planned out this year, is brand new training. And because, as you know, one of the things I do is I talk on webcam a lot, on camera, whether it's one-to-one meetings, whether it's live sessions like this. And I've been doing this for years. My first ever webinar was, I think, in 2005. So I've been doing this for a long, long time. And one of the things that since the pandemic started, there's a huge shift in our profession whereby we have to up our game in terms of how we communicate with people. And I know that up until the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of accountants, bookkeepers felt uncomfortable with things like Zoom, Microsoft Teams, and talking on webcams. Now it's something that we just have to do, and you're probably getting quite good at it. But the interesting thing is, because we're now communicating in a different way, it actually opens up so many opportunities for you to scale your business in some really, really interesting ways, and also to do marketing. So I talk a lot about you want to be on camera because we're in the relationship business. Your clients choose you because of you, not because of how good your work is, but because of you. And so if you want to attract more people like that, you want them to see your personality. And nobody sees your personality on a marketing email or in a blog post, but they do when they get to see you. So I'm going to be teaching very soon, and when I say very soon, April 15, free event, April 15, write it down. I'm going to teach you how to be a pro online, how to master some of the technology, how to master some of the techniques of communicating in a better way, how to be more confident, so that when you're more confident, you're more confident in front of your clients, you convert more prospects into clients when you're having meetings online with prospects, through to how you could scale your business by teaching lots of people at the same time. So April 15, I'm going to be answering those sorts of questions, but Randall, I will answer your question right now anyway, because you've asked it. So am I using software? Yes, I am. When I stream, I'm using software. There are a number of different software tools that you can use. One of the things I will be teaching on that, either on that session or shortly afterwards, I'll be teaching everything that you need to come across and communicate like a professional in this online world. And if you want to go down the route at some point of doing things like YouTube Live, doing things like Facebook Live, which from a marketing point of view is extremely powerful, and I'm going to recommend it to you. It might take some time to build up to it. I know it's scary, but actually when you do it, it's not that difficult. There's software that does it, all sorts of software, and we're using something called Restream, Restream.io. The one that's probably the most common for streaming to multiple channels is StreamYard. StreamYard's great. I strongly recommend StreamYard. There's some particular reasons why, Randall, I use Restream, because it fits in with the rest of my tech stack that I'm using right now. That's not the only piece of technology I'm using. I'm using technology that enables me to do things like, for example, introduce myself. It's Mark Wickersham here. So I can do some cool stuff like that. Okay, Randall, I hope that helps. I will answer that in more detail in later sessions. What are the questions? Roy Gillard's got a question. What does Roy say? Distractions like emails are a big issue for me. Do I just look at them once a day? Yeah, Roy, here's my thoughts on email. I know we have to deal with customers, with clients, and we have to answer those things. But it all comes back to you want to get control. You want to get control of your life, control of your day. And one of the things that's really important is to get into the right habits at the start of every single day. If you are in my pricing academy, you'll know that in my last December session, I taught you some of the things that I do to be more productive, to get more stuff done. And I talked about the importance of habits, of doing the right things, the habits that you do in the morning. And so I have certain habits that we do frequently, as well as, so I go on my bike at least 5, if not 6 times a day. A week. I go for a run once a week. And by the way, if anyone wants to follow me on Strava, you're welcome to. If that might inspire you, it might not, it might upset you. But I go out on exercise 6 times a week. What I also do is I go in the gym almost every single day, first thing in the morning. And I've built them into habits where they just happen. And so going back to the question, Roy, about emails, checking emails first thing in the morning, I would say is a bad habit, because what happens is checking emails, checking social media, checking Facebook, these things can, you check your emails and before you know it, you're answering a few and then some more come in, you answer some more, and you can find your whole morning goes by checking emails. And if you're checking your emails and answering emails, remember what you're doing is you're reacting to somebody else's agenda in life, not to yours. So I know it's really hard to do, but my advice is figure out when is your most productive part of the day, when you're going to work on that big project for the day, and turn your emails off. One of the things that I will do if I'm working on something particularly important, I'll turn it off, and I tend to check emails at the back end of the day. Now, a challenge I have is I tend to go live at the back end of the day as well, at 4 o'clock European time, UK time. But I will not focus on emails in the morning, because I found that morning is the best time for me to focus on big projects. So if I've got to write a new resource, for example, I will go through my morning routines. I will then create the resource. The only time I check email is over breakfast. So I have some cereal, I have a cup of coffee, I'll check my emails to see if there's anything that absolutely has to be done that's important. And sometimes there is some things that need to be done because a lot of my audience is in America, is in North America, Canada, and so stuff comes in overnight. So we'll tend to deal with that. But once I've dealt with anything urgent, shut that down, work on whatever's on my Trello board for today's stuff. I hope that helps with that, Roy. I know it's hard to do. We want to keep checking emails. You have to force yourself to just close that email down and ignore it. William Long, William from Ireland. Hi, William. Over the 10 years, how do you distinguish what is a pipe dream and what is an achievable goal? That's an interesting question. Okay. I believe, personally, that pretty much anything is possible. That when we do set our goals, we often set them too low. Someone once said to me, you may have heard of this, if you shoot for the stars, you might miss, but you might reach the moon. If you shoot for the moon, you probably won't get there. So when we set our vision, our goals, you want it to be something that really inspires you, that stretches you. At the end of the day, nobody's going to beat you up if you fail on that. And also your vision will change anyway. So please don't think that if your vision today for 10 years from now is to do this, it can change. Visions can change because the world changes. It may be you go in a different direction. So 10 years ago, my business vision 10 years ago wasn't where it is right now, because I didn't think that I'd be leaving the business that I was in at the time and starting a new one 4 years later. It wasn't something I was planning. But then things changed. So your vision wants to be something that is inspiring. It wants to be something that stretches you. Then what you'll do is, as you work backwards from there, you'll start to create the milestones along the way. They want to be things so that your 12-month goal, for example, your short-term goal wants to be something where you feel that's achievable. And at the same time, something will take you towards that stretch goal. So, say for example, if you're a sole practitioner and you want to build a practice that you want to be a million in revenue, that might feel that's impossible. I'm only doing 100 right now. But if you want to have as a million, if that's what you want, then make that your goal and then work backwards and say, okay, so where do I need to be at these different milestones? Where would I need to be a year from now to know I'm on track? I'm doing 100,000 right now. I want to get to 1 million in 10 years. If I could get from 100 to 150 in 1 year, perhaps that's doable to get there in 10. And so now we have a smaller, more realistic target to start to figure out, okay, so what do I have to do to go from 100 to 150? What are the things I need to figure out? What strategies? What needs to change? Okay, so I hope that one helps, William. Right, we have Neil Evans. This is a slightly longer one, I think. No, it's not. Neil says, I'm great at setting up projects and to-do lists, but tend to not look at them every day, but more like once a month or so. Any ideas on how to change so I look at it every day? Yeah, well, the way I do it is, again, I have, I use Trello, and one of my boards is my weekly planner. We all have a weekly planner in the business. So what I will do is, what we do is, on our strategic board, Neil, where we have the big rocks, the things that we've as a team we've agreed we want to do in the next 3 months, then that big project card is copied and duplicated onto somebody's weekly planner, and with a date for the next thing that needs doing, and we'll probably build out and flesh out a little checklist on the card, and then what happens is, see, a big project that's going to take you 1, 2, 3 months, you'll break that down into like a to-do list or things that need to be done. If you want to write a book, then there'll be things that you will need to do as part of that. You need to plan the chapters, you need to write the content, you need to get it proofread, edited, and so on. So you have a project and you then break it down to the various things that want doing. And then that card will, once you've done whatever you need to do on your weekly thing, for that first thing, then what I would do is I would just move the card. So it may be that, and it may be to someone else's board. So it may be that that card is something where I've now written the first draft, it wants to go to be proofread. Sarah does our proofreading, I move it onto her board, that's hers, she knows that when she's done it, she passes it back to me, and she'll have a due date on that. We've agreed on the dates for all the various different things. So nothing gets forgotten. These big projects, because the reason we use Trello is you can build a project onto a card with to-do lists, and you can share it with your team and so on. And those things never get forgotten. And that means I know that something will come back when it needs to. I'm just going to check that question again because I just want to make sure I answered it right. I'm great at setting up projects and to-do lists, but tend not to look at them every day. You don't need to look at them every day if they don't need looking at every day. So I gave the example earlier. This particular session, Nina said, I struggle with overwhelm. I saw that. I thought, I want to help Nina because she's in my academy. I want to do some training at some point because I know I could teach these things. And I wrote down a few ideas. But I couldn't do it that week because I already had my plan for the week. So I created a Trello card. And with that, which I just called the card, How to Deal with Overwhelm, I jotted, as I showed you earlier, the things, my initial thoughts. I put a future date to revisit that when I had a bit more time. I think it was a couple of weeks out. Put it back into my future list task. And then when that came around, it reminded me, you need to then look at this, need to plan it out. And so the next thing was to plan a date, get it in the calendar, and then start telling people about it. And at that point, it went to my team. So Emily created a little thumbnail, image, and so on. And I knew that it would come back at the right time when I need to do the next part of that particular project. Okay, next question we have is from Kim. Hi there, Kim. You said, number 5. Do you have a different public-facing email for people that people find to send those marketing requests that you can set an autoresponder on, or is it your normal email address? Let me just see if I'm not sure I understand, Kim. Do you have a different public-facing email? I'm not quite sure what you mean. We have, I have my own email address, which I don't tend to publicize. So the email address that we use is support@wickersham.co.uk, and we tell everybody to use support at because that goes to Sarah. And Sarah is brilliant at dealing with emails. She enjoys dealing with emails. She loves helping customers and supporting customers, helping you. She deals with emails every single day, which is awesome because that means I don't have to. If somebody reaches out, I think there was a question from Zeb Smith. Zeb Smith in the last 24 hours sent a message to support at. It was from me, I think. Hi, Mark, can I ask this question? But it went to Sarah. If Sarah can answer it, she will do. And sometimes she'll just forward it on to me, or she'll have a chat with me and say, can you deal with this one, Mark? And so I will deal with it. But I'll deal with it. The way I deal with it is I write the response and send it back to Sarah, so the response comes from Sarah. Because I want to help people as best I can, but I don't want to have one-to-one email conversations because I know that email can take over your life. Okay, email is one of the biggest time-consuming parts of our life. We have to get on top of our inbox, and one of the ways that I do that is I don't encourage people to email me. If people want to ask me questions, then best thing to do is via the Facebook group, because then other people might answer on my behalf, which is great, or email Sarah and she'll deal with it. And if I have to deal with it, she'll pass it on to me. Okay, that was Kim. I don't know if I answered your question or not, Kim, so I apologise if I slightly misunderstood it. Right, what else have we got? I think this is a question from Mindy, I believe. Hi there, Mindy. I get overwhelmed to the point that I will do nothing or procrastinate with errands or chores or reading a book, a fiction all day. How to get out of this funk? That's a great question. And that is the problem, that when we're overwhelmed, we can't decide what to do next, and we end up wasting time, procrastinating, as you say, doing nothing. And that's because we have this lack of clarity. We have all these things we've got to do. We don't know what to do next. We stress and we end up doing nothing. So what I suggest you do, Mindy, if you find yourself in that situation, go back to point number one, which is stop and reflect. Just chill out for a bit. Just take some time out. Go and relax for a bit. And then number two, remember the second thing I said, get it out of your head. Okay, what are all those things that make you feel overwhelmed? What are all the different things that are on your list that you need to do? Write them down, create a list, document them somewhere. And then you can start to say, okay, that doesn't have to be done yet. Let's put a date on that for the future. That can be delegated. And if you find you've got them all at your head and you've got that list and you're saying, no, I have to do all these things and I have to do them now. Well, you can't do them all now. You have to prioritize. You have to take one step at a time. And so you have to figure out, what's the most pressing thing now. Okay. What else have we got? I have a question from Nadim. Kim, I'll come back to you, Kim, in a second. I've just seen that. Maybe I slightly misunderstood your question. Let me see if I can fix that. Nadim says, what do you do when everything seems urgent? Is there a way you prioritize further? I think I kind of covered that, Nadim, but yeah, sometimes we can think everything's urgent. And at the end of the day, some things are more urgent than others, but not everything is. One of the things that I found really useful is if you've ever read the book by Dr. Stephen Covey, and one of the things he talked about was first things first. That's one of his key things, first things first. And he talked about the first things first matrix. Think of it as a grid where you put on the two axes, urgent and important. And then what you do is, so you've got urgent and important. So you've got those things that are urgent and important, those things that are urgent but not important, those things are important but not urgent, and those things that are neither. And what you then do is you go through your list of stuff that you know you need to do, and you allocate it to the quadrants. And if something's important and urgent, then it has to get done. If something's urgent but not important, and he defines that as being not important that you do it. If something's urgent but not important that you do it, you delegate it to somebody else. If something's is not important or not urgent, then you probably should stop doing it. But the really challenging one is the stuff that's not urgent but important, because very often the most critical things in our business, the most important things that we need to do, are not urgent. The things that are urgent tend to be things that customers want. The clients want something tomorrow. Yes, we have to deal with that because they're clients. But perhaps we can delegate. Perhaps we can find some other way. It doesn't have to be us. The things that the things that are really important but not urgent are the things that get put off and put off and put off. They're the things like planning your next 12 months, planning your vision, things like creating the systems. There's no deadline for writing a system. We know it's important to systemize our business, but there's no deadline. It's not urgent to create that system we've been meaning to do. But when we do, it's going to make our life easier going forward. So sometimes when we're planning what we want to do, is we have to make time for the stuff that's important but not urgent, because that's the stuff that's going to have the long-term impact on your business. I know that didn't fully answer your question, Nadine, because I think actually that was answered by the previous question. If everything seems urgent, then nothing's equally urgent. You just have to prioritize, put them in a list, and then ask those hard questions. Is there anything on this list that actually somebody else could do? If there was a system, could somebody else do it? Because most things can be delegated when you've got the system and you've taught the team to do it. And the reason we don't do that is because systems are, whilst important, they're not urgent. We put them off. Oh, we'll write the systems tomorrow. We'll do the systems another day. And of course, another day doesn't ever come around because there's always urgent things, client requests that crop up in the meantime. We have to make time. We have to make time for these big things. I remember, I think I've told you some of this, I might have told you this, when I started my accounting firm in '96, I made a lot of mistakes. But the one thing I did do well is I grew really fast from 0 clients to 200 clients in just over 2 years. And one of the reasons that I did that was one of my mentors, a guy called Chris Fredrickson, you may have heard of him. I remember Chris saying to me, marketing is really, really important. And the mistake people make is they spend the morning doing the client work and then the afternoon doing the marketing. You want to switch that. Spend the morning doing the marketing because that's important to grow your firm. And then if you've got some time left, do the client work. Because when you do the client work first, it's a bit like the email question I got earlier, where if you check emails first or your Facebook or deal with the client work, they'll always expand and fill your day. And so other stuff doesn't happen. We have to work out what's the important stuff for the long term, the marketing, the systemizing our business, the training our team, and we have to make time for that in our weekly plans. Because the other stuff will happen. The client work will always get done because if we don't do it, the client's going to complain. We will get the client work done. We have to plan the other things. Okay. Kim says, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to jump off soon. Well, we've got to the end of the hour, so we're going to be finishing soon anyway now. So, Kim, if I didn't answer your question right, please stick it in the Facebook group sometime, ask it, and I'll come back to you. Dan says, another great show. Thank you for that, Dan. Roy says, brilliant. Thanks, Roy. Okay, Nancy says, what did Nancy say? It's quite a long one, this. Just got a marketer's request for a meeting come across my email notification right now. When I do my email responses, I will have to type up a channel response much like Mark's. Nancy, if you want mine, if you'd like mine, if it inspires you, the one I read out earlier, ask for it in the Facebook group. I'll happily copy it and paste it for you. And you can use that as a template saying no email. More than happy to share that with you. Okay, Lisa says, very helpful, thanks. Thank you, Lisa, for the feedback. Tammy says, thanks, Mark, excellent points. Another great session. Okay, I'm just flicking through to see if I've missed any questions. If I have, I really apologize because there were so many comments earlier as well when I was going through the 9 ideas. I can't see anything jumping out at me. If I've missed it, type it in really quickly because otherwise I'm planning on finishing in about a couple of minutes. No, I think that's it. So I will enjoy the rest of your day. I'm going to go and get a beer or wine and sit by the pool in a bit. And so my next session will be, it's Easter week, so there's no session on Friday. So next week I'm going live on Wednesday and actually I've forgotten when I'm going live. I should have actually thought this one ahead so I could tell you. I think it's next Wednesday is my next session. Is that right? Yes, next Wednesday, and then also a week on Friday. I think David Colt's here joining me to share what you're doing with effective pricing. That'll be really cool. But as ever, we'll send out an email at the start of next week to remind you of those sessions. Okay, thank you so much for all the feedback. Thank you for the questions. Have a great day. I will see you all very soon. Goodbye for now.